Okay. It's our second time doing this.
Okay, now we're live. Okay, I figured out how to use this. Awesome. Okay, so hello everybody. This is our second stream on the Section 138 YouTube channel. Previously, we've done some streams before the games. We did a stream after the game on our Instagram account. But today, because it's an off day, I think it's kind of fitting. We have some miscellaneous things to discuss. Today, it is just me, Jacob, and Bryson here. So how's it going?
Good, good. Yeah, it's been a couple years since it's just been me and you. So, yeah, happy to be here and happy to continue to stream on YouTube.
Yeah, it's been. I don't remember. It's been many, many years. I think this even before, maybe even before the iTunes days. I don't know, but yeah. So first of all, I think what we'll do, we'll probably stream for roughly 30 minutes, maybe an hour. We'll see how long we plan on doing this. But I think to start, we're going to discuss what is known as the double hook rule. And what this means, we talked a little bit about some rules that are being implemented into some minor leagues, maybe looking into the major leagues, such as a robot umpire. But one rule that we didn't discuss was a rule where basically your starting pitcher is the key to how long you have a designated hitter. So if the Blue Jays start somebody, have him for 5 innings, and then take him out, they lose their designated hitter, I should say. And I think we should kind of break down our thoughts. I'm very torn on this. I think it has some good things to it. I think there is a sad trend of leaving guys or taking guys out way too soon, but I want to know your thoughts. I'll tell you my thoughts in one sec, but I guess just to start, what do you think about this rule where you lose your DH once you take your starting pitcher out?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Tears it like I'm 50-50 because it's got its highs and lows, and of course it completely changes the strategy of the game. So we've seen this idea just for I guess a while now, and pretty much what happens is, like you said, you lose your DH, and that could be a very critical loss to your lineup, especially if you're an American League team a National League team who's designated doesn't have a designated hitter. It creates a massive hole in your lineup, and rosters aren't exactly built the same way for that. I know last year there was a DH for both leagues, and it's likely going to be in both leagues as well in terms of the next CBA. But it completely changes your philosophy of thinking, and I guess the way you structure your team for opening day. So that's it has its pros and cons, but yeah, you know what? I'll send it back over to you before I kind of make a firm judgment on for it either way. But it definitely has its flaws, and it definitely has its pros for both sides.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I think it's not a bad idea. However, there are some things that are going to have to be worked out because I think my biggest concern is what happens to the entire concept of an opener. Because technically, your opener only is going to be your starter, is going to be listed as your starter, and then what? You lose him after 3 innings, and then maybe you have a DH for one at bat. And then I think you go through your bench, and it's just, I think that has the possibility to just destroy rosters because what happens if you're playing an extra inning game and you don't have the ability to use a designated hitter? And also, the thing that I should mention is your relief pitcher would be your designated hitter should you not want to take somebody out. So I think that's also what we need to consider. And I think that alone is not a terrible idea. I mean, pitchers have batted before in the National League. American League pitchers are not necessarily used to it, but they have done it before. So I'm not too worried about that. But I think the one thing that I'm concerned about is just how will that work for kind of this new era of baseball where starting pitchers don't go in as deep. And I think the whole point of it is that Major League Baseball doesn't want they want starting pitchers to go deeper and not be taken out after the fifth inning and the absolute second the top of the order comes up for the third time. So I'm welcome to it. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world, but I feel like there should be some type of exception for openers. Although I will say that there are going to be teams that I think abuse that and say we just have 5 openers and therefore we can abuse this rule. But It's one that I think will need to be carefully considered before it's implemented and before something that drastic is done to Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it definitely has to be carefully implemented for sure. And like you were mentioning, how it completely, I guess, tries to keep pitchers in longer. I know that's not the trend in baseball right now. For example, this Blue Jays team, of course, they like going to the bullpen very quick. And the only really case where you can look at it where it actually would be beneficial for a team is the end of Shohei Ohtani. We saw it this year where he was the starting pitcher and he was also hitting. So in that case, they took out the DH and they didn't play the entire game. They didn't use the DH. So other than that scenario, I think that completely changes everything because of course it works out for a team like the Angels if Shohei Ohtani is pitching and hitting at the same time. But yeah, it's just for me, I like starting pitching. I think they should be going deeper in the games. I think they should be throwing until they're tired or they're struggling. I don't think there should be. I don't think it should be as limited as it is today for those reasons alone. Playoffs, as much as it worked out for them, I wasn't a fan of how they handled things with Matt Shoemaker. It was either game 1 or game 2 where they completely had a pitch limit for him, and he was pulled out of the game after 3 or 4 innings automatically, not even thinking about performance or anything like that. I know it worked out for them, like I just mentioned, but I still don't like the idea of it, and I think that they should be pitching until they can't, and until the Jays decide to actually, or any team in this case, decides to actually go to the bullpen and not planning for it. In terms of the opener, again, not a fan of it. I dislike it very much. I'd rather bullpen games than openers. I just hate the idea that you start a reliever and then the starter follows the reliever. I hate that. I just think it's overthinking it too much. You have a starting pitcher, use that starting pitcher and pitch it for as long as you can before you get to go to the bullpen, because you don't want to burn out your bullpen, especially in times like this. We're just entering May now and we're at the end of April. You don't want to burn your bullpen. We saw it last year with the Blue Jays bullpen. It was burnt halfway through the year in a 60-game season. So those reasons alone have my flaws with it. I know strategically and analytics may say otherwise, but I'm more of an eye test.
Yeah, I like that point you brought up about Matt Shoemaker because I think, yeah, it worked out for the Blue Jays and Matt Shoemaker was not the reason why they lost. I think, if I remember correctly, it was 2-1 or 3-1 was the final score. So that was totally fine. I don't think that we can blame blame the loss on that move. But it was very concerning. And in hindsight, obviously, we can say it worked out or it didn't not work out. But at the time, it was super concerning to me. It's like, why, after 3 innings, do you take Matt Shoemaker out when he's absolutely dealing? Watch the game. He's clearly not struggling, so it doesn't make sense to take him out of the game. And for that reason alone, I think that this might be justified. The only thing that, again, I'll go back to the whole fact that relief pitchers would eventually bat. I think the reason why I'm hesitant to welcome this move, even though it would have some good things attributed to it, is just because what happens if your relief pitcher does get hurt? And I think that's a concern, especially when American League teams go to the National League. It's, well, is this guy going to get injured? Is he, what happens if you put your hitter out just to bat 2 or 3 times, or your pitcher out to bat 2 or 3 times, and he gets injured? And it's just, I don't necessarily like that as an idea. And I'm reading in the chat, Tucker, who I see was waiting here even before the stream started, so thanks for that. He mentioned, or he says, I don't really care about the rule, he just doesn't want to see pitchers hit anymore. And I think that's fair. As I just said, the last thing you want is a pitcher to get hurt just because you needed, because you wanted your starter to get in. So I don't know. I'm not sure if you agree with me on that stance, but kind of where are you on kind of trying to keep pitchers as safe as you possibly can?
Yeah, I think the time's come where they don't need to be hitting anymore. I think last year worked out for every National League club as well who had a DH, and it seems that it was something that they wanted, or something that you can't remember who it was, but one of the, it's probably going to be part of the next CBA where it stays implemented, and I think it is. I think this is the last year you see a pitcher hitting. I just go back to last year, and I really liked it from then. And I think it was a long time overdue. I think this should have been done years ago. And quite frankly, I just think it's past the time where pitchers need to hit. I know Shohei Ohtani, like I mentioned at the beginning, is a rare exception because he actually can hit, and he actually does hit just as much as he pitches, and he's actually hit more in his MLB career so far due to elbow issues so far with pitching, and he's already undergone Tommy John surgery. So that is why I am on board with you for sure with that. I just think a DH all around the game makes it better, and I think it's something long overdue, and it's good for modern day baseball. I think it's something that they need to, I guess, change from what they've had for all this time, and I don't see a purpose for it. As much as I say I like it better, it also, there's no way pitchers like going up and hitting, especially American League pitchers who are playing an intra-squad game in a National League ballpark. You really think there's a reason why they don't swing at all? Very rarely do you see them swing. They usually keep the bat on their shoulders. They're lucky if they walk, and they'll strike out looking, no problem. So there's a reason why that happens. People get injured, and it's just something that you can't avoid, or you have to try and avoid, and something that you can't avoid if this is happening. One of the reasons for it last year was due to the 60-game season, the shortened season, the fast spring training they had in the summer was to have this full-time DH because they knew that pitchers would be at higher risk of injury, and every player last year alone was at higher risk of injury because of the spring training they had. It was a very weird spring training where they had, I guess, game action. They were maybe simulated games as well as hitters. So that is why it was implemented last year, and it's definitely something that should be thinking for through the future for sure. And I think it should be part of the next CBA, and I think it will be.
Also, I see in the chat, Tucker has mentioned that the bats are also just so uncompetitive, and exactly, I mean, I don't have stats right in front of me, but every single time I see a pitcher up to bat, doesn't matter if it's American League or National League, they're always hitting either around 100 or under 100. So realistically, I feel like if you force a pitcher to get into the game, you're just kind of giving the other team an out. That's not to say that pitchers are terrible at hitting. It's just that's not what they're meant to do, and I don't think that it's fair to assume or to force them to hit just because the manager decided to take the other guy out. So yeah, I think overall it's not the greatest idea for Major League Baseball. Don't get me wrong. I think that the baseball managers should focus on trying to get guys in games longer and keep guys in games longer because, again, if they're doing well, what's the point of taking them out? Obviously they're doing well for a reason. Unless they're showing signs of struggling, don't just take them out immediately because it's the third time throughout the order, because I don't think that tells the whole story. And it's just, I feel like baseball trying to get a little too textbook with their stats and everything is not, it's not holding the fan response that I think they've really expected, because the majority of people I feel like that I've talked to have said they actually don't want this rule. And we talked yesterday on the podcast about how there's going to be robot umpires or potentially robot umpires in Major League Baseball in the next couple of seasons. I think, surprisingly, a lot of people are actually welcome to that, but not a lot of people are welcome to basically almost penalizing managers for keeping a team or your starting pitcher out. So I think the general consensus is that people, yes, they want pitchers in the game longer, but I don't think that it should come at the cost of losing your DH, because also there are guys that might primarily be a DH, or if you're a team like the Blue Jays where you have 10 guys or even arguably 11 or 12 that can fit your starting 9, obviously not all of them are going to get in. So do you say Rowdy Tellez, you get one at bat today, or when George Spring comes back, Randall Grichuk gets one at bat every couple of days? I don't think that's necessarily fair, and obviously teams can work around that. They can rebuild themselves differently, but I don't. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is I don't think that this is the best rule.
Yeah, and before I would, I guess, decide if I like it or not, I'd like to see it probably tested out in the minor leagues like they have with every other rule. So that is how I kind of, it's just, it is a pretty big change when you look at it, because we know that, like, lineup changes, strategic-wise, starting pitching, like, it's a pretty big ripple effect. So it's something you got to be careful with, just like any other rule change. Experiment within the minor leagues like you have with everything else and see what happens. I know we started the robot umpires are beginning to be experimented there. Runners on second base was experimented in the minor leagues as well. So, I'm open to it, but right now I like the way it is, and if they were to ever consider it, I'd like to see it first in the minor leagues for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now I think, because it seems we're in agreement with this. This is kind of an interesting topic. I think I'll look in the chat and I see question from Tucker saying, would you yeah, this is the fun.
Canada, this one, Jacob.
I was gonna say,
oh my goodness.
you can't make mistakes when you're when you're live, but anyways, hopefully that'll give people some good laughs. But anyways, Tucker is asking, would you rather see a pitcher, actually this is a funny one, would you rather see a pitcher at the plate or that's a good one, or Danny Jansen? And
you want me to talk quickly so you can calm down?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Danny Jansen. As much as I would definitely rather Danny Jansen for sure for a starting pitcher, unless it's Shohei Ohtani, because that counts as a starting pitcher. So for Danny Jansen, I know he's gotten off to a rough start, and it's still there. Either way, you got to go with Danny Jansen. So unless it's Shohei Ohtani, so Danny Jansen, I think he's a little bit better than what he's showing so far. I don't think he's a great hitter for sure. I agree with that. I don't think he's a great hitter at all, but I do think he's a lot better. He's obviously better than what he's doing so far. So, yeah, that's a pretty easy one for me.
Mm. Yeah, I think with Danny Jansen, he's struggling right now, and it's not going his way. I'm not sure where or how much better he could be. I feel like realistically mid twos, mid to low 200 batting average is fair for him. But he's struggling right now. I believe he has. Don't.
You got this. Come on, keep going.
I saw the chat, bro. Don't. Okay, anyways. Danny Jansen's struggling right now, but I still think he's better than what 2021 has shown for him. And with that, I think if there's any other questions, I think we'll answer them, and then perhaps we'll wrap it up there, just because it is an off day, so there's not a ton to talk about, but we tried to scrape together. Tucker, thank you for that. Yes. Case of the giggles. Yes, so the interesting thing is we usually have a lot of things to edit out, and this would be...
Usually it's you.
Usually Mark would send us a large audio file of somebody's dogs barking or laughing, so you can't escape that when we're doing this. I see one more question. I think we'll answer one more question and then possibly call it a day, but we see from Morty asking, why have the Blue Jays not traded for a good starting pitcher? It will literally be a game changer. I can't say I disagree with you. I thought they should have acquired a pitcher in the offseason, although the pitchers that they've gotten, I don't think were that bad. Robbie Ray was not the greatest in his second start, but he was pretty good in his first start. Steven Matz has been fantastic all season long. But I think with that being said, the acquisitions they made have been a pleasant surprise. I just think right now they're dealing with so many injuries that thankfully, it's not the lack of moves that they made. It's just the injuries that have gotten to them.
Yeah, they haven't, to be honest, they haven't traded for a starting pitcher yet because it's not August yet or it's not July. I think maybe even June. It's too early for that. They came into the season obviously shorthanded. Well, I would want to say shorthanded, but not a lot of people were exactly thrilled with what they had. I know the depth's there, but of course, I've said it many times on our podcast. Check it out if you haven't listened to it yet. That the concern for me is a lot of these guys still haven't proven themselves at the major league level as much as they have the depth, and I think we've seen that so far in terms of the bullpen more than the starting rotation. But with the starting rotation, you've had a few surprises so far. Other than Hyun-Jin Ryu, you have Steven Matz who's pitching at an elite level. Robbie Ray's still trying to figure things out. Nate Pearson's on his way back, of course. Ross Stripling's a guy that could be thrown into the rotation mix for sure. there's a few guys that are still missing, and there's one guy in particular who is slated to be the second starter on this team coming into the spring, who's still trying to figure things out. And Steven Matt's the fifth starter who came into the season as the fifth starter. He's pitching at an elite level, the best start he's ever had for sure so far in his career, even going back to his days with the Mets. I know he's had a few good seasons with the Mets previously. So, it's there. He's got some stuff there. And I'm glad that he's, proving people wrong, or not even, just surprising people. But us adding a starting pitcher, to your question, I think it's something that will be coming up throughout the season. Going back to the winter, I said free agency isn't the only place to add. And building up to the summer, building up the trade deadline, I think they're going to be active for sure. For those reasons alone, they're going to be a competitive team. Hopefully, at the time, they're going to need more arms. They're going to need more arms that have proven themselves, and that puts them at a different level. In baseball, usually you build majority of the team that you build is for your lineup, and usually the starting rotation is people that you go out and acquire. If you look at past World Series teams, the 2017 Astros, despite their cheating scandal come to mind, they traded for Garrett Cole. They had Justin Verlander, two guys right there they traded for. It helps the rotation for sure. I think it's still too early. Earliest you might see something start to circulate would probably be, and that is also kind of early for me. The trade deadline's obviously at the end of July, and that's when you might see action for sure. Heading into July around Canada Day, I think it's all going to start coming together for sure. But I think step one for sure for this team are right now the priorities to get healthy and kind of evaluate your team once you have a healthy rotation. I'm very excited to see Nate Pearson pitch. Jacob, I'm sure you are as well, and I'm sure Mark is as well. I think all three of us are for that. Someone who I'm pretty sure every Blue Jays fan is excited to see. I want to see Robbie Ray fix things and kind of correct his delivery and limit the walks. I want to see if Steven Matz can maintain his start to the season. Maybe if he doesn't, still pitch at an elite level. I'm very curious to see how that turns out. Hyun-Jin Ryu, I think we all can expect him to be elite and be that number one guy in that rotation. So him, I'm not too worried about. And for that reasons alone, I want to evaluate a healthy team before I make any moves. But I do think for a World Series contending team or a playoff contender for what they're calling the Blue Jays and what we're calling the Blue Jays, closer to the trade deadline, once we get into the warmer months, I think you're going to see something happening for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's too early on to make any moves. But with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you to everybody for joining. You can watch this stream on our YouTube channel after. I'll put it up. As well, go check out our recent podcast episode 115 on this channel and anywhere that you get your audio podcasts. You can follow Section 138 Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I think that's it.
Patreon.
Oh, yes. You can,
almost.
Yeah, there's tons of different things we got to plug. But yes, you can support us on Patreon, which I'm thinking one thing we can add, you can join us on our live streams. There's also a Discord server, which we are using to talk on right now, that you can join. There's a lot of great perks. But again, with that, I think that was it. Thank you to everyone for joining. Blue Jays play the Red Sox tomorrow, as you can see on your screen. So thank you for listening, and I think we'll catch you tomorrow. Yeah, we'll catch you tomorrow for a post-game stream on Instagram.